Namaste, Namaste, and welcome to today's Love Satsang, Truth Transmissions of the Golden Heart. From my heart to yours, as always, transmissions that I feel relevant and helpful if you're on this path of spiritual awakening, returning back home to your own essence, your soul, love, truth, what we are collectively journeying through, and yes, which is also an individual up and down journey. And this is today's topic, especially how we navigate these ups and downs and turnarounds on the spiritual path, and what surrender means in this grand scheme of awakening. I hope you find useful information for your or inspiration for your own journey right now, because why I share it, because I've journeyed a long time already on this path, and I feel like once you've journeyed through some things, it becomes clearer, more obvious what this is all about. Sometimes we get lost in so much. I have to chat, I have to release, I have to let go, I have to use this concept, I have to try this tool and this workshop and this training and yeah, we become sometimes on that path so immersed into or dedicated and rigid sometimes to find the solution, to reach the goal, to be at the end point, to achieve something, and also get distracted from others, what they say, you should do this, and this is how you manifest, and this is how you heal your inner child, this is how you reparent yourself, this is how you get more into your feminine or masculine. So many things out there at the moment, obviously because we are going through that collectively and it is needed. And at the same time, it's always about coming back to your own internal and upward connection world to find what works for you. What works for you. And before I dive deeper into this, let's take one deep breath in and out, wherever you come from, to just be very present with me today. And to be on the same page, what is actually spiritual awakening? Yeah, what is it? In essence, for me, it is to return back to our home frequency, to love, to truth, to something we cannot even name or grasp in words. We get glimpses into it in this body, in this human form, but we'll probably not entirely understand what it is, because this is part of the game. It plays through us, with us, or I mean, we are that what is playing, and we are that is remembering itself. So in a way, spiritual awakening is also aligning back to the higher intelligence of existence, the divine, God, the universe, that intelligence that we innately bear, no matter if we are conscious or unconscious, unaware or aware. But that what get triggered in us at some point on our path in some lifetime, yeah, is to ask deeper questions, to want to know the deeper truth, to become more conscious of how you live, to find peace within yourself, happiness, fulfillment. I mean, all outer things usually bring us back inside again, and then the path becomes more conscious. But I would also say that actually we all are, no matter if you are conscious or unconscious, awake or not awake, or title yourself as spiritual or not spiritual, we all are in the same boat. We all are, in a way, on the awakening journey. Some are just in a lifetime where that is not the dominant focus. And maybe, and most probably, if you're here right now, you have that as a dominant focus of your life's journey in this lifetime. So awakening is coming back to yourself, to the divine essence you are already. There's actually nothing to seek or to find in that sense, because you are already it. But to realize that not only as a concept, because a lot of people also know that, they can repeat that, they can talk about that, yeah, but it remains a concept if you have not gone through certain things, to find a deeper realization, a deeper, a deeper understanding, not from a mind level, but from a lived experience level and from a soul level, a remembrance. Yeah. So there we have the connection from awakening to remembrance. Actually, awakening is remembering, opening your eyes to the bigger picture of what this existence, what all of this is about, and what you truly are, is remembering what you have always been. We can also say that awakening then is the grand remembrance. And that happens in stages and phases, in cycles, in a spiral, where you encounter different topics that your soul came here to learn, different people that help you on that journey, different situations that bring you closer to that, what you want to find out in a way, which is always already here and now. Yeah, this just is a baseline what awakening in a way is. And when we are on that path more consciously, there are these, what I call the up and downs and turnarounds of awakening. What I mean by that is that awakening is not like a straight line always going upwards, like from here, from being asleep in a way, and then awakening, 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 and then you are fully awake. That's usually not happening on this human level, on our plane. It's more so about going in a roller coaster. Yeah, maybe sometimes you have linear paths, like it's like exponentially growing, and sometimes it's just more like this. Yeah, oftentimes more like this. And the thing about this is also that we don't really know how long these phases last. We may be in a phase currently where we feel, yeah, collectively at least this is, I feel, for many the case, where we feel a little bit shaken up into the unknown and shaken through to really sort out, okay, this is what I still want in my life. This is not what I want in my life. This is the letting go of the past year, especially, and transitioning through the topic of this year, which is much more inviting, really seeding or finding what we truly want to have on the truth-based soul-based level in our lives, and what from the past actually serves us for this higher truth we may have already found within, and what we have to invite anew to really fulfill our path. So this is one collective phase we are interwoven individually. So this phase is obviously also not only up to you, but for all of us to transform. So not only when you transform, but only also when others transform, the collective shift really happens on a larger scale. So the phases where I was talking about, there are phases of stagnation, phases of not knowing, phases of improvement or perceived success, phases of seeing deeper truth, higher truth, phases of feeling totally connected and in alignment with yourself, totally happy and in love, and phases where you feel completely lost in the darkness, in the void, only doing shadow work. And then again, there is a phase maybe where you feel like, actually something is working. What I've internally shifted is suddenly appearing outside. Yeah. So in a way, also awakening is that game of remembrance and forgetting. Remembrance is the path forward, forgetting is the path backwards. And also, again, I've mentioned that multiple times, collectively, obviously, as we know, we are on this path collectively of remembering who we truly are. What I also want to invite you in, therefore, is to be gentle with yourself and to see it is normal that awakening fluctuates, that no matter even how much you worked on yourself and feel like, I've done already so much, sometimes it doesn't really translate immediately outside. I've been there. Not only been there, still some things I've worked on for years still haven't manifested in the way I worked towards to. And sometimes also the realization is that not only that it may not be the time now, but maybe also that something else is meant for you, and that it maybe is just a internal other dimensional aspect you're currently discovering. Yeah, not everything that is internally happening in your imagination, in your visualization, on your vision board, maybe even, not everything of that is meant to manifest really. And that's also where I feel some get lost and trapped in manifestation techniques when they feel frustrated when something not works. What I also want to mention here by that, not everything that everyone shares may work for you or not. So discernment, your inner voice, your own connection to yourself is always the key aspect. That's why no matter which tools, no matter what you participate in, no matter what you watch from others, what works for them, it always comes back to yourself. What is your soul? How is it designed? How is it here to explore this world? What archetypes do you carry? What codes wants to be activated? So it's much more complex than saying, this is awakening, these are the steps you need to take, these are the tools for it, and then it's done. That would be too easy for the divine to experience itself again. And yes, sometimes the ego wants that faster track. Yeah, and that's why we type in, okay, how to whatever, heal my inner child, how to heal my distorted attachment style, whatever, ChatGPT. Yeah, we want shortcuts, and that's fine. We just have to catch ourselves in the moment when it becomes too much of an outsourcing of your responsibility or your energy, or actually also your power, because as we also know, we all have the power inside of us to tackle the challenges and to go through the challenges that we are currently facing or that are presented to us in the future at some point. Now comes surrender into view. Because, yes, awakening sometimes even forces us to look at the things we feel not healed, or although on another level perspective, we are already complete and whole and healed. Nothing to heal, nothing to worry, nothing to whatever. But on this human plane experience, we feel like, okay, this is something still I want to look at. This is still triggering me. This is something still from my childhood I want to look at. This is still something that doesn't really work in my manifestation profile. Whatever it is. Often we have situations that we are pushed into, or things fall away suddenly that have been built on ego structures or fear-based comfort zone structures instead of soul level alignment. Often these also fall away during awakening. And then what actually it calls us not only to look deeper, to reflect us more deeply, to contemplate, to find solutions in a way for it. It also always calls us to surrender. And surrendering, what does it truly mean? I also invite you, as always, to even the title I always use for my satsangs and in general for my sharings, also in my podcast, I intentionally use for you also to reflect on the same. What does true surrender mean for you? And I'm sharing now some inspiration for you to dig deeper into that topic. But surrender, without surrendering, awakening will be very, very tedious and very hard, very painful, very damaging sometimes. Because if we are too much in, okay, I am on my spiritual path, I have to let everyone knows that I'm on that path. I have to share that I'm on that path. I have to awaken others to be on that path. I have to, this a little bit more in the ego, stuck in the ego way of journeying through awakening. What it always brings us down into humbleness, because we don't have all the answers. We are not meant to have all answers. And sometimes we are also stuck in finding no answers and or be forced to sit with I have no answer, and that's okay. And that's surrendering to the mystery of life, of existence, of the awakening process, of yourself. So surrender is in a way also finding peace with what is, accepting the current state of being, of your situation, or of whatever is currently presented to you that may be challenging, that may be something you feel this is the next step I have to take on my journey. Surrender is bowing down to your own divine essence, laying down the sword of the ego. Because what blocks surrender and what blocks the flow of awakening is the ego, is our human limited self that thinks it has all answers right away, that thinks that it is a know-it-all, that fights for identities that have expired, for the comfort zone that feels so fakely nourishing, that fights to stay where you are, that fights for what is used, that fears the unknown, that wants to protect yourself, of course. And everything is fine to a certain extent. And then, usually, the more you grip on that ego part of yours, the more situations in real life happen that will force you again to surrender. And also in this time quality, as I experience it, it is necessary to bypass our mind, our logic that always wants to understand. It's not only the ego, but also our logical analyzing mind, our humanness that wants to understand oftentimes what we are going through and how to navigate it with more ease and peace and grace. And yes, that's also totally valid and beautiful and often necessary from one perspective, but from another perspective, there needs to be some room for the openness to receive new answers, because you cannot awaken to the truth if you operate on a lower level of your consciousness that is just used to the old, to what used to work, or what you maybe catched up from others, what worked for them. So there needs to be a certain amount of trust that you open yourself up into the unknown to receive new answers. Awakening, remembrance happens through being open to receiving what needs to be received in the moment without analyzing, without your logic in place, without anything you've ever known, maybe, to receive. And surrendering in that sense is really receiving instead of fighting or controlling. That is, again, the ego, the limited self. I mean, we also have different layers of ego. Maybe at some point I will speak into that, not today, but ego has many layers, from the very grasping one to the a little bit more fluid one. And if you see it from that way, ego is also just your limited perception, your limited self of your human avatar, yeah, in the most innocent way. But with that in place, with a little bit of, I'm tapping into my own knowing from past, from future, from current state of being, from maybe even channeling if you are already there, from connection to your higher self, your soul, the divine, angels, whoever you are connected with, and leaving room and space, openness to receive something new. Surrendering is also not just, okay, I decide now to surrender. That's usually a good idea, but it's not that simple as you may have already experienced that. Even when you're on that path and think like, okay, I've done now everything I can and my best intentions into the way I know at the moment and the level of consciousness I'm operating in, I feel I have done everything, I'm complete, so I now have to surrender. Like a conscious thought of, okay, I done my job, I've did my healing so far for that, whatever you're challenging or was challenging. The rest I now surrender to the divine. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it needs layers, unraveling layers of what surrendering in your situation means. Because oftentimes also it's dependent, to be honest, how much it means to you to overcome what you're currently challenged by. So if you are challenged by something that blocks something that you already see for you in the future, it obviously is much more important for you, and you feel more responsibility and more motivated, energized to solve the blocks or the wounds or whatever is in the way, then the harder surrendering is, because impatience plays often a role as well from our human perspective. On this plane where we have the time dimension, we are sometimes asked to have patience because it's not all in our hands. That's a major realization sometimes from awakening and surrender. Yeah, it's always paradoxically multi-layered to look at this, because some will say, everything is in your hands, you have free will and you can decide, and everything is a choice, and just do XYZ and you will manifest this, just shift your vibration, your identity and whatever, and then it happens like this. Not always, maybe sometimes. But on the other hand, it's also like sometimes we are in this phase of, I really don't know, I've tried everything, I've meditated over it, I've asked others about it, I've did trainings and courses about it, it's even maybe my field of expertise. And what it teaches is to be humble, to surrender, to receive, and to be open, and also to realize, in my opinion at least, that there is no real free will from a human perspective. It is just also an illusion. Because who operates you? It is your soul. And from a higher perspective, it is the divine. So, in a way, if you are truly aligned with your soul, yes, it's a perceived free will of your human avatar. If not, you don't have really free will in a way. That's my opinion. It's maybe also up to discussion, and also a paradox sometimes, because maybe you have experiences, a lot of experience where you say like, okay, I feel I have free will. And some others will be there and say like, no, I feel like I have to adjust to whatever is here in my field. Otherwise, yeah, if I choose XYZ, something happens to me that is not good for my well-being. So I have to flow with what currently is presented to me. There's a soul will, if you can say it, a soul will that translate into the human will. And once they match and mix, you can say you have a free will. But in a way, it's also then determined, already predetermined by your soul's path, your soul's evolution before incarnation. That said to this. So surrendering has layers to it, has components to it, and always invites us back into a softened version of ourselves, to be on that spiritual path, especially in love with ourselves. Because awakening, remembrance, one core teaching, if not one key teaching, is to love yourself unconditionally in the ups and the downs and turnarounds, in the motivation and demotivation, in the resistance and in the surrender, in the movement forward and perceived movement backwards. no matter what happens, it is and comes back to loving yourself so much that actually it doesn't really matter if you have a straight line of awakening, if you have this line of awakening, which is more common, or the common way of awakening. If you're currently stuck, or if you are cheerful, or if you're deeply depressed, no matter what, to love you and accept yourself in the state of being you're currently in. Because sometimes I feel awakening becomes such a competition with yourself, like your ego and your soul in a way, and with others. And that's not truly meant by it in a way, I feel. It becomes a competition when you put yourself always under pressure to, for example, say to yourself, I should be further than that already. I should be already here. This should have already been happened. Why I am or still here in that phase? Why, what for, what if? If it becomes too much, at some point also here surrender needs to happen, so that from a human level even your nervous system is not blasted into constant overdrive, like being in a burnout of spiritual awakening. Yeah, having a burnout from spirituality in a way. That can happen. So there's finding a balance between, yes, reflecting, taking responsibility, being empowered, self-empowered, navigating this with a certain determination and discipline, and at the same time to be gentle and check in with yourself. What do you truly need right now? What would nourish your heart? What would benefit you more in the long run? This is a constant weighing on that path, and all of it merging back to what I mentioned, self-love. So awakening teaches us also by going through it. I mean, some think like, okay, there's a destination, there's a goal. Once I'm fully awakened, everything is perfectly fine. I'm living in paradise. I understand the whole of existence. And that is somehow a little bit of an illusion as well. And here we can, take that saying actually of it's not about the destination, but about the journey. And it is up to discuss or to question if even after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, we cannot say that there's a lifetime where you have fully understood everything. Because we always, as a soul, we always in one lifetime, we have a certain framework in which we operate and certain themes, topics, what we wanted to learn. Not the whole existence. That's beyond the capacity of our human understanding. Once the soul descends into form, it naturally chooses limitation, restriction, illusion, ego, to wield this totality of itself, to have a glimpse and experience one specific part of the puzzle. So there will never be, in my opinion, like a full, complete view in one lifetime that you complete. What is enlightenment then? What is the fully awakened state, the fully conscious state? Maybe it's much more about how much can you be in the present moment, vibrate in love, breathe in truth, be connected to your own core, be connected upwards and downwards, be a clear channel. Different views on it. And you are invited to find your own view on it. Sometimes I feel people get lost in the spiritual seeking not really reflecting or understanding why they are on it. I mean, maybe at the beginning they knew and they got pretty excited to, like, yes, let's ride the horse and go upwards. And after a while, some people get lost in tools and techniques and talking about it. And that is also what I can come often back is this earth. That's why we are incarnated. Needs embodied spirituality. Not just in containers when you are in a workshop, not just when you are with yourself in the morning practice, not just when you do a teacher training, completely interwoven in your everyday life, even if you are just walking on the street or going grocery shopping. Embodied spirituality is a vibration in that way also. A vibration you carry inside of you. And I always love this, my idealized sometimes idea of if more and more people really connect to their hearts, to their love, to the soul, to vibrating in truth, coming from soul, not from ego, that you become a transmission and everyone is transmitting some codes of this entire truth. And so we learn from each other. We nevertheless learn from each other, but we learn much more on a heart-based and soul-based level than from ego-based construct or distortions that still are we are here to clear out. I mean, that's future thinking a little bit, but it's something I drop and plant wherever I am, to think in these terms. Here sometimes, we are sometimes stuck here, but it's also okay to first be here and then drop deeper in the body, in the heart. To allow yourself and to have patience with yourself to walk in your own tempo. Yeah, here we are again. No comparison on this journey, no competition on this journey of awakening. Because it's your soul, your path. No one and nothing compares to that. And it's not even important where you are. From a divine perspective, everything is perfectly fine and orchestrated. I know some people are or tend to be perfectionist about it, but it's already perfect as it is. There again, I bring it in again, the balance between, yes, discipline, determination, having certain time frames for yourself maybe, and then again also listening to your body, what it needs. Maybe it needs just now rest. Maybe it needs some time outside in nature instead of focusing again what needs to be healed or shifted or transformed or looked at or what is not complete. Sometimes it's just your body wants this. Like, stop. I just want to breathe and be and maybe play music and maybe dance or to be in the moment. And that's something, at least also on my path, what I feel maybe even the more you are on that journey, the longer you're on that journey, or the more deep dive you are on that journey, the more also you come to a realization that surrendering, to come back to surrendering, is also just to be with what is, and to, in the beingness already, to find everything you are looking outside. Yeah, that's what we sometimes get stuck into this focusing outside, researching tools and techniques and tips, tricks. And then again, to come back and sit with that, to contemplate, not only to meditate or reflect or journal, but contemplation is something that is somehow connected between a meditative state and channeled state and a perceived view of there's more I want to discover, to maybe cross-analyze what has happened to you, what you have gathered from outside, and also to drop in new information from above, so to say. Yeah, it's a complex process, but that is something I can suggest, to look deeper into contemplation instead of research or instead of wanting the next tool. Because we have so many tools. yes, it's beautiful. Find your own tools that help you on that journey. But when it comes to situations where you are forced to surrender, no tool will really help. Only acceptance and breathing in the moment and trusting answers will come. Another phase will come when it's meant to come. In a way, this is also flowing with the cosmos or with the universe, with the divine, flowing with it instead of forcing something that's not meant yet to be. Patience again here. Wu Wei, maybe you know that Taoism. Wu Wei, to flow with the currents, and then actually surrendering becomes like a, yeah, like even because like, yeah, surrendering may in the beginning feel very forced, like, oh, I cannot do anything, I have to surrender now. The mind is giving the signal like surrender, surrender, surrender. Sometimes that may take some effort in the beginning, but when you have peeled layers of resistance, surrendering in the deepest sense is actually not only resting in the moment, but also flowing with what is. It may sound paradoxical because resting is more still stand, flowing is more movement. But it's a combination of that, I can say. It's a combination. It's a peaceful state, an aligned state, in a way, a shanti state of, yes, I'm aware when something comes as an information, I'm acting in alignment with that. But if no information currently I receive on doing something, on acting from your higher self, your soul, when nothing is coming down, like, okay, I cannot change anything, so I just am, and I just live my daily life. Sometimes maybe that means that you have peaks of totally immersion into spiritual concepts, and then there's maybe a drop when you are asked to not immerse yourself in this, where you find more joy in meeting friends or something that is not perceived as so spiritual. And that's also part of your journey, maybe, because also in these drops, perceived drops, integration happens, embodiment happens. So even if you perceive like, I don't know, something is not shifting, something is not aligning in the way I have internally already aligned, something is not landing, these are moments often where orchestration behind the scenes happens, or in your own system, in your own field, that are not meant to be cognitively understood or analyzed, but just to let your body do the work. Yeah. Your system is smart. We know that. So many shifts happened automatically, and integration is necessary so that your nervous system, from a human perspective, is not overloaded by higher frequencies. Because awakening ascension, I mean, it's always interwoven, means receiving or being vibrating in a higher state of consciousness. Higher frequencies means your nervous system on a human level has to adapt to it. And if it's too fast, you can short circuit somehow your field, your energy field. And that is prevented by these drops or perceived still stands, loops, voids. I have also one episode about that already, the void state. It's a recalibration, integration, something where your system can breathe and catch up sometimes, because you can internally shift a lot, but the plane here is denser, so it needs more time to integrate that, to adjust to it, to align to this, to let reality reflect what you have achieved. And that's also why a lot of people, you have already maybe heard of it, say that don't trust always the reflection of your reality right now, because it's actually an imprint of your past alignment. So if you have shifted something, it's not immediately visible outside. So your internal state, your energy, your vibration is much more clear, more precise, more true, we can maybe even say, than what you currently live outside. That's it has a lag in time, let's say it like this. So as you see, surrendering is very multi-layered also. It's not just like, let's surrender, or I've surrendered to that. Sometimes people say it like this, I'm surrendering to this. But do they truly surrender? Do they truly surrender is a question sometimes. Because it's easy to say, but to truly do it is another thing. And part of awakening, part of the spiritual path is to learn surrendering in the deeper sense, what I shared, being in the present moment, and also when there's action to take, to align your action with the flow of life. What then happens also is that you actually become a channel. We operate always as channels, but I feel it's a shift in perspective again that we have lost sight of, or many have lost sight of, that we are actually meant to bridge heaven and earth by clearing our channel, and not only, I want to heal this wound so I am happy and fulfilled. That is one aspect of it. But on a higher level, it's also to act as a channel. Always also to be in balance, not to sacrifice yourself too much in the, I'm a channel, I have to be very pure and I cannot live and cannot enjoy life, go to the mountains and meditate. That's the extreme. And the other extreme is, actually, I don't care. I just want to be happy and fulfilled and do whatever, and don't even, elbowing myself. Elbowing myself around, and I don't really want to know about others. That's very egoistic way. So it's about finding the balance between taking care of your needs and seeing you are also a vehicle for your soul and also a channel for the divine. Yeah. Question. Hello again. Beautiful that you're here. What to do when nothing seems inspiring, nothing seems relevant, one does not see the point of daily existence or justification. Like the purpose is always hidden, not seen. I like that question because I feel a lot of people, if not all, on the spiritual path, on this awakening journey, at some point, once or often also multiple times question everything, including their own existence, including their own purpose. And yes, I've already also been there and repetitively sometimes find myself there. Where it's like, what's the point then? What is the point? What is relevant? It's a decision, it's a choice in a way, and it's kind of like, okay, wherever you put your focus on, that can become the relevance. So it's in a way also the game of focusing on this or that or this. And what it, in a way, what comes to me is what this nonsense or this ridiculousness of it, if you feel sometimes that happens, especially if you are on the peak of, I need to heal this, I need to transform this, I need to shift this, I need this tool and this tool I've heard of, I know go to this workshop and this plant medicine will reveal the big truth. If you have been vibrating on this for a long time, often this drop comes and like, I have done everything, but what's the sense here? What is the nonsense and sense here? The ridiculousness of the perceived brokenness of us that brings us back to the truth that we are already whole and complete. And that sometimes exactly triggers this feeling of, what's the point? Why is it relevant? And what comes in then again, in my opinion, from my experience also, when I came to these points of what's a ridiculous point here, and I've sometimes maybe even spent years on something with a dedicated focus and still it's not happening, or even it's breaking apart, then it is about our inner child to just play. If we perceive children, sometimes they have no real purpose in why they pick now a flower or why they want to play with their teddy bear instead of their puppet. Sometimes there's no higher purpose in it. And I know the older we grow, the more we are in this perceived state of spiritual healing and ascension and the grand shift and the timeline split and whatever buzzwords. Sometimes we can get lost in this grandness and something needs to happen. Sometimes the purpose is just to enjoy the moment. Yeah. And what is joy then? We have sometimes I feel, to detach joy from success or purpose. We can feel joy without having a purpose, or joy without a goal or achieving something. And sometimes that gets entangled, so that we feel like, only if we have this or that purpose, we can feel joyful. But joyful is independent of it, obviously. Why exist? Your soul wanted to make certain experiences, like glimpses of the truth, glimpses of a certain topic or theme. So the purpose is basically just existence itself, reflecting itself, experiencing itself through us, and finding joy in it, or forgetting and remembering that. So yes, we can also sit and see like, this is my purpose, and this is my soul's path, and that is something we identify with. Yeah, this gives most people a sense of purpose, at least, to have an identification with something that they feel fulfilled with, that comes even naturally to them, and what they can share with others, where they even see an impact on others, to help someone, to be in service for the collective or something like that. So usually the purpose from a human level is an identification with something. But beyond that, in my opinion, the purpose is just to be, and to experience, to explore, and maybe also to, yeah, to find back to that deeper truth of nothing really matters. Only so much you put a label on it. This matters to me. It's a human-made concept of this is relevant or this doesn't matter. It's at play, at least for me, also these contemplations, these considerations, these questions I have, and then sit with myself with these questions and find answers for it. That already is some form of fulfillment, of aha moments, in a way. And that's what the divine enjoys, like concealing something, hiding something, and then in a way, through us, how we are designed to reflect and to find back to that, what it already is. I know it's sometimes ridiculous, and I have been there as well, and still I sometimes feel like, okay, this is totally ridiculous why I had to go through this. Yeah, totally ridiculous. But from a higher level perspective, it's just no judgment. Because ridiculous, or what's the point, this is our human again stepping in, labeling something as good or bad, or relevant or not relevant. And from that higher level, of course, there's no judgment there. It is just what it is. And sometimes we have to make peace on that path to, I have no answers to this. It just is what it is. Somehow, yeah, it's just part of my journey, or was part of my journey, and now life continues. Yeah. Yes. I feel like this child again, born into a new experience without my mother in the physical, trying to cope or have to learn to live all over again. Yeah, that can be a realization. The Yeah, one view of it, why I also mentioned the child, the inner child, is that oftentimes it's also said, when we complete the arc of our journey, that it is actually about coming back to the childlike view of life, or the childlike interaction with life. From the child of innocence to taking everything serious and working and trying to find your purpose, or heal whatever you feel you need to heal, to be on a peak of that. And then to remember again, actually, just let's be like children and play and explore and be. But it needs it feels it needs this journey to go. I mean, some would maybe say, like, okay, why don't we always stay on the level of childlike perception and experience and interaction with the world? Some may question. And I feel like it's intrinsically interwoven into this game that we have to have this hero's journey of us to go through hardships, through heartbreaks, through losses, through all this, to then say, actually, when I reflect my life, I just can return back to play, to see it as it was not really as important as I saw. And maybe, yeah, you can reflect on situations where everything felt so extremely important. And once you journeyed through it and came out of the tunnel, so to say, you're like looking back and like, I don't know in what kind of movie or storyline I was lost that I took this so seriously. And sometimes even this comes up as a realization. Next time when something like this happens, I'm more gentle with myself. I take more care of my needs at the moment. I take care more of the playful approach to it and not the tense approach. And often also, yes, even if we transition through the different identities from us, which can, as you in the chat mentioned, which can come with someone being lost in life, or also breakup, relationship breakups, or a job falling away and you're stepping into another job, or whatever it is that has a clear cut in your life. We are, in a sense, yes, always like a little new child. A new identity is also first learning to walk in that identity until it becomes more rooted, until it becomes actually then also outdated, outgrown, to be rebirthed in the next identity. And that is part of the awakening process as well. To peel yourself over and over again, to step into new versions of yourself over and over again. And that is also a purpose to that exploration, that grand play of exploration and experience. And yes, reinventing ourselves, or in a way also, because let's say it like this, on this path, it always comes back to yourself. You, yourself, and no one else. I mean, everyone else in your life is part of you anyways, has the same life force energy, just mirrors you something, just teaches you something, but all of it reverts back to yourself. So especially with this case scenario, it's the detachment of needing something outside. That is part of the awakening and remembering also, because as a concept, we often know everything is inside of us. Sometimes we just need the human experience or something happening that forces us to that realization. And it's a process of both, in a way, knowing you are an individual here incarnated, but also you are everything, and everyone else is part of the same underlying or overlying current of energy. So we have the human level, it's separate, it's individual, it's your identity, it's your ego, your path. And on the other level, it's we are all journeying in the same soup of energy. Yeah. And that often also has to do with generating or accessing the feelings, the emotions you associate with something that's outside of you. Because why we cling to someone or something outside of ourselves is usually not because of the form, this body, but because of the way we felt with that person or experience. And if we get down to the root of how we felt, how we feel, or what we think we lost, to generate this feeling inside of us, because others or other situations outside, people or not people, It's just a trigger for that emotion that happens inside of you. The emotion is yours. If you fall in love with someone, the love is not the person that's a projection onto them, but it's a feeling that's generated inside of you. Yeah. I know it needs some awareness of that, because it's not about the other person, it's always about you and how you feel. And in love also, it's often about this, I need to be with this person, I want to be this person. Why? Maybe they get validation from that person, they get pampered from that person, they get gifts from that person, motivation from that person. All is fine, and we are interacted like we are community driven humanity, like we need connections. But why do we see connections? Actually, on a spiritual level, on a soul level, we have connections to have something reflected back to us, what's already inside of us, and also to meet others activating something that's already inside of us, always back to us. Yeah. So finding ways to generate the same feeling. And sometimes it's also maybe a start of working with that what is missing as a photograph, as something, as a substitute, to then more and more enter that feeling inside of yourself and cultivate it, because at some point it becomes natural that it's already inside of you. But someone else can never give you something that you already have inside. It's just a trigger, a catalyst, an activator, an invitation, sometimes a distraction to find the other opposite of it inside of yourself. Yeah, and maybe at some point I will do a live on soul contracts. I feel that is helpful, because also there, and if you've journeyed with me for a while, you know that I like to switch perspective between the human level and the soul level, and I have also already pre-recorded a podcast episode about that. That we can see life from our limited perspective and from the grander perspective. And when we have someone outside that we feel is missing, we are outsourcing something what we already have inside. And in this sense, also always the internal state, the energetic state, the vibration, the feeling, because energy and motion is always also on the energetic level, actually, what we are seeking. That awakening journey, that spiritual journey, ascension journey, however you want to call it, path of remembrance, all is for me the same in a way, is finding everything inside of you, not just as a concept, but as a lived experience. And that takes sometimes time. So also here again, being patient with oneself. But as long as it is a repetitive loop in the mind of, I need this, or I need someone, or I need to do this workshop, or I need to complete this training, or I need whatever. Needing is always directing our power usually outwards, and spiritual journey, awakening journey, is always bring it back to yourself. Maybe get lost sometimes in something outside, but bring it back to yourself again. It's at least from my perspective, it's always a constant bringing it back to yourself, to anchor it in yourself, because everything you have inside of you, you can never you cannot never lose. Everything inside of you can never lose. It's always with you. No matter if you are ending up on the street, no matter you have no money, no matter you have no friends, no matter what you lose, that what you have rooted inside of you, and at the highest expression, it's always the love you cultivate for yourself. That's why I mentioned that on the path of awakening, it's always about actually also self-love. It is with you. Always. And again, it doesn't mean, of course, that it's not challenging. But I feel it releases a pressure sometimes, and it soothes us into knowing, okay, worst case scenario, I have everything what I cultivated inside of me. And for me, therefore, also, when I feel into this energy collectively at the moment, especially pastly here, yeah, I'm like, wow, I mean, I love that a lot of people are more self-reflective, and on YouTube and Instagram, you find much more information about spirituality, and much more people go to different modalities and tools. But I felt like at some point it becomes a race. It becomes a race of next, 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 and I'm like, breathe. Sometimes I had to do that also for myself. Like, okay, just sit and breathe now, and nothing to be done right now. Just to focus on my heart, and everything is fine. Yeah. To stabilize yourself also on that journey. That's the best tool you have, and that is always inside of you. The rootedness, the more rootedness you have, the more groundedness, centeredness with your breath, with your heart, with being at peace, and the acceptance of what is, without knowing all answers, without having to do right now anything, is sometimes really actually the key to then be empowered, motivated to go forward. Because there's no standstill, and whoever still believes there is an end goal to achieve, and that you have the full enlightenment state, whatever it means for you, yeah, then it's maybe a realization that this is not a race. This is a continuous spiraling journey, and it is about nothing and everything, or however you define it, whatever you choose, whatever you feel relevant. And yes, I know, and I can feel it makes sometimes things so complex. And maybe when I share this way, you get a glimpse into my internal world that is sometimes like, yeah. So I try to break it into pieces that may ignite something inside of you. But yeah, it is complex. And sometimes we feel it's very simple, and it can be simple. The simplest is, again, as I said, breathing, being, accepting, playing. And then again, if we start questioning, it becomes more complex and multi-layered. So what I mean by that also is surrender is also surrendering to the, not only to that state of being or your own path or the current situation, but also to the paradox of life. And I feel that's the joy of the divine through us. There's no right and wrong, there's no up and down or whatever. It just is what it is, and the paradox is interwoven to keep it a mystery, to keep it magical, to keep it surprising, to keep it like wow and aha moments. And yeah, that sometimes I feel when people get too much lost in this ascension journey, all of this is too much of a strain or pressure on you, where you get lost so much that you forget this playing. And I can relate to that. And I feel like after, if I tap into the time quality, I mean, it's still continuous purging, and it, in a sense, if we understand it from that game, but what we currently collectively play, it's also that your soul chose to participate in that, to purge, to clear, to heal ancestral karma, and to connect to your multidimensionality. But all of this is play. If you identify with, I'm a shaman, or I am a starseed, or I am this, I like to play with that too, yeah, because we get reference points from that. But on another level, it's also, you're just nothing. You're just like a tiny fraction of something so beyond your capacity to understand. Yeah. To surrender to the not knowing and paradox of life. And it makes it much more easy if you invite this child and this humor and this playfulness in it. To have maybe a reminder on wherever you walk past your mirror or your vision board even. Don't take everything so seriously. And maybe there are phases you take everything serious because it helps in a way also, because it promotes direction, it promotes discipline and discipline and determination. And then to know, that's maybe the key, to have the discernment of when it is finished, when you don't need to have this strictness with yourself anymore, but can relax, to have the phase intentionally of, okay, I've done everything now, intentionally I go more into my easy peasy flow of integration. And then again, maybe because this, from my perspective and my experience, it's like we intrinsically have something of the cycles. I mean, the whole cosmos works in cycles. And so we have something that innately, if we are connected, that knows, okay, now is the time to take aligned action with integrity and in devotion to my soul. And now is the time to rest and digest, in a way, just as our nervous system works. And that is also part of that journey. Yes. So this is, yeah, what comes through me right now. In essence, I think you have felt, I hope, that ascension is an up and down, turnaround spiral, and there's no good destination. The journey is already the destination in a way, and it's always about a balance between a lot of things. It's complex, more complex than we think, maybe, and it can be very simple to just be and play and then be in our true vibration of essence in the very moment. Inviting human, inviting playfulness, coming back to the inner child, which is, I feel, a topic, to be honest, for, yeah, maybe in 3 years, starting much more like after this transitioning phase we are currently in, where we are still sorting out and inviting in. But once we have a foundation that feels stable and safe, because the child also needs the safety of, okay, now we have a stable baseline where we can operate from, the inner child will become much more dominant in our society, and that I'm looking forward to as well. So whenever you have the time and can tap into this, when you're totally lost, especially, or totally in depression, I know it's not always easy, but to activate this tiny part of you and make it bigger into, like, inviting your inner child, that part, from a tiny glimpse of, okay, there's this inner child still to play, to make it bigger and to let it overtake sometimes when you're too lost, to let it overtake and just laugh at yourself about the ridiculousness of, okay, I don't know, I'm actually on a higher level, I'm already whole and complete. Nothing to heal. And now I'm playing just to be unhealed, to, yeah, have the perception of being healed afterwards. And with that, I, yes, leave you with your own contemplation about this topic. There's a lot to think about yourself, and also, yeah, get not lost in these thoughts either, but, yeah, to be vibrate in love. That's always my highest message. That's already enough. Thank you so much for your words, for your contribution. Whenever you have anything that comes up, if you watch the replay, for example, also, then leave your comments. I'm more than happy to answer anything that comes up, or share your own experiences, or maybe you even have different views. I'm curious to hear, and also let me know if you have any topics you wish to be covered. Until next time, whatever that is, I'm going with the flow here as well, because I sometimes have spaces where I don't have good internet connectivity, as last time, for example. And yes, so much love and bliss, as always.